All right, welcome back to Law and Crime, everybody. I'm Jesse Weber, and thanks for joining us. We're waiting to jump back live into the Alex Murdaugh trial, the man accused of murdering his wife Maggie and son Paul on their property in June 2021. Right now, it is all about the defendant's cell phone, and I want to break that down. I'm joined by two special guests. I think we're working on getting forensic death investigator Joseph Scott Morgan on, but right now we do have with us criminal defense attorney and host of the Defense Diaries podcast, Bob Murdaugh. Bob, good to see you. Thanks for coming on. So we've heard a lot of interesting testimony today about Alex Murdaugh's cell phone, something that is usually attached to us. We've learned about which I thought was really interesting, that the calls that he allegedly made to Maggie were wiped away from his call log. The reason we know those exist, because if you look at her call log, they exist. That's A. B, we learned about the recorded steps with the phone, which it makes me wonder if these steps were happening when he said was taking a nap at the house, and why there are so many steps at really curious moments, and also about how many messages he read and when he read them. What are you taking away from this testimony?
To me, it's the strongest evidence they've put forth so far. I mean, it's damning in the sense that it looks like there's way too much going on. I mean, when you look at the amount of steps that were taken, it just doesn't look like the guy was calling his wife. So it's going to be problematic. I mean, they're going to have to try to dismantle the defense. Is going to have to try to dismantle what's going on with this, because it stinks of impropriety, to say the least. And I'm a defense attorney. If I was his attorney, I'd be concerned about that. But, they can't be shocked about it either. This isn't, as much as his attorney seemed to have a hard time understanding yesterday during the testimony exactly what the codes meant. This isn't a shock for them. I'm anticipating that they'll have some kind of way to try to offset what I consider to be very damaging evidence.
So again, just to give you an idea, Joseph, 74 steps recorded between 8:05 and 8:09, 283 steps recorded between 9:02 and 9:06 is when we believed after the killings happened. And then at 9:08 is when Alex Murdaugh texts his wife saying he's going to go see his mother. What stands out to you?
Well, I think that, it does, our colleague mentioned smacking of impropriety. You begin to think about his actions, certainly leading up, but then afterwards, and how in the world would these things be wiped on his end? I do know this. I've gotten a peek at potential witness list in this case, and it is rather robust on the defense's side relative to electronic evidence. I think that's something that we're going to be seeing because, as was mentioned, this is a fire that the defense is going to have to put out. They're going to have to address it. And one other thing, prosecution is going to have to do a very good job of keeping this very simple, not getting into the weeds with a lot of the technical data, but really preaching to the jury about what this means at a very basic level.
I agree with you. And talking about one of the complications for the prosecution's case is we don't have the murder weapons, right? Those murder weapons weren't recovered. That brings me to John Bedingfield, who was actually assembled certain weapons for the defendant. Now, before you say, oh my goodness, what are you talking about? Well, this is a family that had a lot of weapons on their property. So the idea put forward by the prosecution is we might not have the murder weapons, but I tell you what we do have. We can match the ammunition that was found near the bodies with the ammunition that was found on different parts of the property, and we can make the assumption that the family murder weapons are the family weapons are the murder weapons. Let's go back to John Bedingfield. This is him actually being cross-examined by the defense from yesterday. Let's listen to where they went.
You mentioned that you and Alex Murdaugh are related? Is that
Yes,
right?
sir.
How are you related?
Our grandmothers were sisters.
Okay, and does that make, and your
I'll call us second cousins. We're cousins.
your fathers were first cousins, right?
Correct.
Okay. And over the years, you spend time with Alex and the boys?
I have. Not a lot with Alec, mostly with John Marvin.
And have you been camping with Alex and the boys I think that big, Dad used to host a big camp every year?
I have.
And you been fishing with them?
Not much.
Been hunting with them?
No, sir, not Alec.
Okay.
I have with John.
Right. You've known Alec for quite some time?
My entire life.
Are you, well, a gift of some $8,000 is a pretty nice gift for two boys, right?
Yes, sir.
Did you ever observe Alec around his sons? What kind of relationship they had?
I have.
And how would you describe their relationship?
It was always good. When he called me, he was excited about getting these for his boys.
And it was a big Christmas for them, I
Yes,
take
sir.
it. Okay. All right. 1 second, Ron. Is it less expensive to buy a 300 blackout directly from Combine State Armory rather than have you build one?
It can be, depending on configuration,
And all the,
any accessories that get added. And
okay.
And we're looking now at the first page. Describe to the jury what that is, please.
that is the canceled check from Alec for the original 2 firearms.
For the original 2?
Yes, sir.
And what's the price on that, please? I can bring it to you if you
I
can.
got it. $9,188.
All right. And what's the date on that, please?
I'm sorry.
What's the date on that?
12/23/16.
All right. And is this a record that you kept in accordance with your FFL obligations?
The check, no, sir. We retrieved that from my bank.
Got it. All right. Go to the second page of this exhibit. You recognize that? Tell me what that is, please.
That is the check for the third replacement 300 blackout to Maggie Murdaugh. That's the check she wrote to me.
All right. And what's the amount on that one?
$875.
All right. So the first one for 2 of them was $9,188, correct?
Yes, sir.
And the second one is only $875. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And is the difference between those that the second one didn't have the optic and didn't have the suppressor? Is that part of the difference?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
All right, we'll talk about that in a second, but right now I want to bring in Law and Crime correspondent GiGi McKelvey, who is outside of that courthouse in Walterboro, South Carolina. GiGi, it's good to see you. What a morning, right? I mean, what did you take away from, and what did you learn that we didn't know before about Alex Murdaugh's phone?
Good morning, Jesse. Well, we've learned that Alec largely deleted most of the calls he made that night, except for one to Rogan, who had his dog there at the kennels. Other than that, it seems every other phone call he made was deleted from his cell phone.
And what about the tracking location? Because I thought the amount of steps were interesting. They went through a whole list of time frames and how many steps. And obviously, it's not an exact science, but it does tell us something. And the things that I'm thinking about, well, how does that match up to what his alibi is, which is he never went down to the kennels. He fell asleep after dinner, right? That says the last time he saw his family was dinner. Then he goes to visit his mother, then tries to call Maggie, then comes back, goes to the kennels and discovers the body. What does the tracking of the steps on the cell phone tell us?
Well, what's interesting to me is the most steps that he took was between 9:02 and 9:06 p.m., which is when he says he left to go see his mother. That was 283 steps. Apparently, he said he leaves the house, gets in his car. It's a lot of steps from the house to the car, it seems. And everybody kind of was looking around thinking, yeah, that's a long distance to walk just to go to your car.
And there was also information I thought it was interesting about what his general activity is in terms of when he reads messages, which I got to tell you, I didn't even know there was a science to it, but I'm sure if you look at anybody's cell phone, there's probably a pattern. There was a pattern with him. Is it any different during the night in question?
It is. They said that normally he would read text messages anywhere between 5 to 40 minutes after they were received. But the group text, which involved the condition of his father being in the hospital, wasn't read until the next day after the murders.
So walk me through this. I've been of the opinion that the prosecution has done a really strong job of showing when these killings happened. Can you walk us through, based on what we've seen so far in this case, including today, can we be are we pretty sure that the killings happened at around 8:50 p.m.?
Well, yeah, because what you have is Maggie reading her last text at 8:49 p.m. and 27 seconds. Paul's last text that he read was just 30 seconds or so after that, and then no more activity from either phone. So it lets you know sometime after 8:49 p.m. is likely when those murders occurred. And we have Alec leaving the house at 10:06.
Okay, and that
Or
is
9:06, I'm sorry.
right, and I think he calls 911, what, an hour later at 10:06 or something like that. So walk me through
Right.
why it's so important they're leading up to this, because what the big finale is, not even the big finale, but like the crescendo of their case is going to be that video from Paul. That video that was taken on his phone. What time was that video? Is it 8:44? Is it 8:47? I can't seem to recall. And on the video is allegedly, you can hear Alex Murdaugh with him at the kennels, which would contradict what he told police, but also place him at the crime scene. Walk us through what we should expect from the timing of that video and why it's important.
Well, that was around 8:44 that Paul took that cell phone video of his friend's dog. Now here we have the last text being read just a couple of minutes after that, then no activity. So you have a 3 or 4 minute window there where we know Alec is there by the dog kennels at 8:44, and within 3 or 4 minutes, the last texts are read by both Maggie and Paul, and no more activity from their phone. So I think it kind of starts to get a picture of exactly when those murders could have allegedly happened at the hand of Alex Murdaugh.
GiGi, what's the environment like in the courtroom? I mean, are the jurors paying careful attention to this cell phone evidence? Sometimes it can be a bit dry. Sometimes you can see jurors kind of fading interest and, hopefully not falling asleep. Do they seem attentive?
They seem very attentive. It's a little hard to keep up with the times because they're being said so quickly, but they are all ears. Nobody has really moved. Everybody's kind of just sitting in their seat, hanging on every word of this expert. Very intriguing stuff. And now we actually have a display in the courtroom. We can see the non-graphic exhibits. But yeah, I mean, it's really starting to put a little bit of that picture together, at least nailing down the time of those murders, we think.
I'll tell you, I think today was more interesting than yesterday. There was only so much more. I could hear about 300 blackout rounds and different kinds of ammunition. It's important, but again, when you don't have the murder weapons, it's kind of, remember what the purpose of it was. This I find very fascinating. Let's, GiGi, thank you so much. I know you have to jump back in the courtroom. Appreciate your reporting. Great reporting as always. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk more about it.